Globalism, globalization, global society are terms that we hear and use more and more often. In the next minutes I will discuss the first influences of globalization on monetary systems, their effects, the benefits and disadvantages that these influences bring, and respectively how the economy will evolve due to these factors. However, to continue this analysis, we must first see what a monetary system is and what globalization means to get some main ideas about how the two topics work and what influences they have on each other. What is a monetary system? This term, monetary system, is based on quite a few definitions, but the most general and at the same time the one that we can consider more main is that a monetary system is a certain way of organizing and regulating the circulation of money based on special laws of that state. What is globalization? Globalization does not have a concrete definition, but rather is a description of economic and social processes and those in the field of technology that characterize the change and evolution of goods, services, knowledge and information between individuals, which has both national and international influence. Hence the name of the phenomenon of globalization. Monetary systems have been linked to globalization for many centuries. From the beginning of the appearance of coins, the trade with civilizations outside the borders was tried, and for this a common means of exchange was needed which represents the same purchasing power, be it expressed in the common or uncommon means of exchange. We can attribute the term globalization, since those times, although this concept appeared much later. Monetary systems, in a globalized economy, can present a set of very complex processes, given the frequent and partially predicted changes in economic and social level from one day to the next. There is a need for a significant trend towards the new and an almost perfect synchronization between today's nations, for economic, social and technological processes to take place in a positive and harmonious way. Although this is not always the case, conflicts between states arise almost daily, but we cannot rule out stagnation or even the internal regression of a country. Many factors can affect the negative evolution of a country, factors such as religion, culture, tradition, politics, etc. And when there are problems internally, it is never ruled out that externally things can get even worse, and certain economic processes and even relationships can weaken or even end. So we can say that in order to grow in a world dominated by globalization, there is also a certain degree of tolerance and empathy. In the case of our subject, the examples are the acceptance of the purchasing power of different monetary systems, such as some of the most popular common monetary means of exchange, such as the US dollar, the euro, and the pound sterling. Although not all common means of exchange are traded directly in the territory of a country other than their country of origin, except in certain member states of the European Union where the euro is traded directly, they may be exchanged for money from other countries at an exchange rate valid on the date of change. We can say that this process takes place on a premise such as, we give money for money. The first signs of the influence of globalization on monetary systems took place between 1950 to 1960, where central banks around the world were trying to find an alternative to the international fixed exchange rate system. At the same time, these influences did not have any favorable consequences. Due to the lack of lucrative monetary policy networks, instabilities have been created in the inflation and output of many countries around the world. In the 70s, the real GDP of Europe had a volatility comparable to that of the United States of America, which at that time was 2.8%, compared to that of the 90s, which was only 1.4%. For example, in France the standard deviation of real GDP growth was 2.7%, a relatively large increase, if we refer to that of the 90s, which was only 1.1%. However, due to the harrowing consequences of the beginning of the globalization of monetary systems, after these economic disasters, new and better theories for monetary policies have been developed and put into practice, and due to this, much more beneficial macroeconomic results have emerged. These theories, of course, have been influenced by the concept of globalization. Today, the globalization of monetary systems clearly indicates that the economies of different countries are moving towards a more and more integrated global system, so we can say that at present, these global influences and transformations of financial systems are guiding most countries around the world. An easier and much more positive development, both economically and socially. Some of the effects of the influence of globalization on monetary systems are those of creating a single market, liberalizing and globalizing economic phenomena. The main advantages of these effects are the following: intensification of intracommunity trade, accelerating the process of technological innovation in the member countries, increasing economic stability and stimulating investments, increasing the economic potential and absorption capacity of the community market, smooth functioning of markets and full liberalization of commercial, industrial and financial activities worldwide, rapid acquisition of skills, rapid and effective creation and use of technology and information. The greatest opportunity available to the phenomenon of globalization that influences monetary systems is that of market exploitation. The disadvantages followed by this phenomenon were most often encountered at the beginning of it. As we have exemplified above, their effects have had a very significant impact, both in the degradation of the world economy and in its development, and these developments are felt and they tend to develop even today. Of course, this does not mean that the disadvantages are not present today. Some disadvantages may be that less developed countries find it difficult to keep up with world leaders, and they will not be as evolving as more developed countries. Another disadvantage may be in countries that focus more on traditions and culture than on the economy, and this prevents those countries from taking advantage of certain advantages and opportunities. National monetary systems need modern policies, due to globalization, to keep up with the differences, trends, and exchange rates on the financial market, because as most of the world is aware that the economic phenomenon is clearly at the top of the deterministic pyramid of the evolution of the globalization phenomenon, practically representing its driving force. The monetary system is practically one of the main targets of the phenomenon of globalization when we talk about it. At present, most of the changes and novelties that occur in monetary systems due to globalization can be observed. I think one of the most revolutionary and modern changes is cryptocurrencies. This phenomenon can also be described as virtual gold, being represented by digital currencies, and their functionality is similar to that of gold. However, what is very different between cryptocurrencies and gold is the so-called exchange rate that these two elements represent. For example, the exchange rate of the most popular cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin, is $45,000 per coin, much higher than the gram of gold, which is worth about $58 at the moment. So we can say that cryptocurrencies are also an effect of monetary systems that are under the influence of globalization. The phenomenon of globalization on monetary systems is necessary because it provides the opportunity for the development of all countries in the world and even simplifies this. Due to the influence on world finances, this phenomenon allows the prosperity of humanity to continue in a relatively easy way and helps the accelerated evolution of technology. In conclusion, the monetary systems under the influence of globalization are inevitable, by the simple fact that mankind must trade abroad, which requires a common means of exchange where the financial market exchange rate resulted. The economy is the strongest affected by the phenomenon of globalization. Here results a global economy that requires synchronization from its participants, and due to the evolution of productivity following these processes, the rate of development of the leading states in this market increases day by day.